Hello and welcome to the Bundesliga show, the Thursday evening predictions version of our show. Matchweek 30 already. It's a big kind of round number this weekend. We love them, don't we? Only obviously the fifth to last match day of the season, and we've got it all to play for going into these last five fixtures. And as you can see, once again, I'm joined by Peter Weiss doing his first live show in a while. So yeah, how are you doing over there, Peter?
Oh, Mark, I am just absolutely overjoyed to be talking the world's best footballing beat with you live here on a Thursday night. Nothing like the anticipation of the weekend. Man, have I missed you.
Absolutely, yeah. So remember, guys, don't forget to let us know your predictions as well. We're going to be going through ours, but we also want to know what you guys think and whether you agree with us on the predictions. So don't forget to check in. Let us know who you are. We want to interact with as many new people as possible. You can see a few people are already watching, so don't be afraid to send us a message and get in contact as well. But yeah, without further ado, we don't have a Friday night fixture. Obviously, the German Christians of this world have decided that Good Friday is still too holy to have a Friday night fixture. So yeah, we are deprived of our Friday night curtain raiser this week, Peter. I'm pretty sure the Bavarian guys down here will be happy, though, that they can have their Good Friday in peace in this case. But yeah, let's move on to Saturday in the godless land of Saxonia as well to kick off our week, which is obviously RB Leipzig versus Holstein Kiel in a pretty, interesting looking fixture of two totally different kind of clubs with totally different types of ambitions going into the last 5 weeks as well. So Peter, while it's your first show, a prediction show in a while, I'm going to let you kick us off with RB Leipzig versus Holstein Kiel.
Well, it doesn't get much easier than this. We have Leipzig in very good form under the new interim trainer, Löw. He has won his first two matches in charge, and he's done so by getting the German Red Bulls back to basics, namely that 4-2-2-2 R-based system. Of course, that's actually how Marco Rose initially stabilized Leipzig as well. We were talking a little bit on the Monday pod of the significance of Lois Openda, the Belgian striker, scoring just his third goal of the new calendar year. And that was indeed quite the scene in which he jumped into Löw's arms afterwards. And there was a great interview in Kicker this week in that Openda revealed that he and Löw went on a little Spaziergang, and they talked about the art of scoring goals and how he was going to get back into form. So Leipzig are rolling under Löw. I believe you and I both believe that they'll be qualifying for the Champions League, as we talked about on Monday's pod. And Holstein Kiel. They're a wonderfully comic Benny Hill music type of Bundesliga club. But with Thomas Dana in goal, you just have to be freaking kidding me for a 3-0 victory here for Leipzig.
Yeah, I think obviously, again, it is definitely one of the games that most people will be tipping as a home banker really on the, the betting card this weekend. But one thing I would like to add to that, Peter, let's not forget that Kiel have that incredible record of having scored in every away game to date. So they've scored in every single one on the road, incredibly, yeah. So that is something that's going to influence my score a little bit. But I still see Leipzig getting a comfortable win here. They've just got too much quality as far as I'm concerned for this Kiel side. As you say, Zolt Löw has really impressed me so far. I felt as though last week's performance against Wolfsburg was arguably their best of the season, actually, in some ways. I felt they were really impressive and getting the best out of Javi Simmons, which we haven't seen enough this season, too. So I've gone for a 4-1 win, but I'm still going to give Kiel that goal just to keep that legendary record up, potentially, that they're going to score in every away game in the Bundesliga this season. Yeah. So who knows? Will it be Shuto Machino or Phil Harris? But they are going to get a goal at some point in this game. So, yeah, let's move on to another game, which is between a top 4 side and a bottom 3 side. But in this case, it's at Heidenheim. First of all, Peter, we've got to say a word on Bayern's unfortunate elimination from the Champions League last night. Personally, I felt as though they actually played quite well, to be honest. I think they were a little bit unlucky in some ways. But I guess when you can't defend corners, 2 corners not defended, then it's not going to end well at this level of football, is it? But it was a pretty unfortunate elimination. But still another quarterfinal failure for Bayern Munich. But this week they've got an easier task of playing relegation-threatened Heidenheim, and I still feel as though they do have too much quality for the struggling side. Obviously, they are rippled with injuries, aren't they, at the minute? There are so many injuries. Musiala, Davis, Upamecano will all miss out. Neuer for the continuing to struggle Urbich in net, who's never quite looked confident to me since he moved between the sticks after the injury to Manuel Neuer. But having said that, I do believe they'll get a win in Heidenheim. Let's not forget that Heidenheim have caused them a few problems down the years as well, actually, since they've been in the Bundesliga. They actually won this fixture last season in incredible style. They also got 2 goals at the Allianz as well in December. So they have always caused problems for Bayern, and I think they will get a goal again here against this kind of floundering Bayern defense. But I do believe that Bayern will take another step towards a title with a 2-1 win here. Peter, what have you gone for?
Wow, you preempted all of my preparation. As a matter of fact, well, while I was prepping for this match, I found myself encountered with familiar facts, similar facts as the pod that we did about this very match in December, which we did mention how Frank Schmidt's Heidenheim beat Thomas Tuchel's FC Bayern München at home, and also the interesting record that Heidenheim are averaging 2.33 goals per game against Bayern, and they did meet that standard at the Allianz in December. So there is hope, of course, in the fact that Bayern have a short week, and we have more problems with Min-Jae Kim, who has had a disastrous night at the San Siro. Back-to-back horrible matches. Vincent Kompany is about out of options to plug that central defensive hole. As a matter of fact, I'm currently projecting that he's going to put Josip Stanisic in at center back, because I don't think he has much of a choice. He cannot put Min-Jae Kim out there again. Of course, your tip is more or less correct. Actually, I agree with it completely. I'm looking at a 2-1 Bayern win here, a workmanlike win, a labor win. I think that Paul Warner is ready to feature again, as is Budo Sivsivadze, which doesn't matter at all. That's totally irrelevant. But it gets a couple of his attackers back, and they should be good for a goal here, in my estimation, particularly if he's got Stanisic in there in central defense. So I agree with your tip 100%, and we'll go with a 2-1 victory for Bayern.
Yeah, some nice comments in from Paul as well. Evening, lads. Yeah, he's predicting Augsburg to potentially capitalise on Frankfurt's game tonight. Obviously, the last European team standing, aren't they? Obviously, Frankfurt. So we need a win big time against Tottenham from them. But yeah, definitely we'll come to that game a little bit later. Paul tips that Bayern will unleash their frustration on Heidenheim. Well, we predicted to be a relatively workmanlike tight win, but yeah, I'll have to see. Paul's gone for a 5-0 in that game as well as a 3-0, agreeing with Peter on the Leipzig game. Yeah, and then the next one, he's also gone for a home win as well. So that's an interesting tip from Paul. So yeah, Peter, I'm going to let you lead out on what is a relatively interesting looking tie. Again, another match with a lot riding on it between Werder Bremen and Bochum.
Yeah, well, speaking of prep work that got me experiencing deja vu, I believe I mentioned this on the December pod that Bochum are absolutely terrible against Bremen historically. They've won once in the last 22 occasions.
Wow.
And that is Bremen have lost only one of 35 home matches against Bochum in total. This was not there was also a horrible losing streak between 1981 and 1992. They failed to win 23 in a row against Bremen. Bochum did. I might have brought all of this up on the December pod when we were previewing this round, because it all sounds so familiar. So you take this historic record and you couple that with the fact that Bremen are entering on a 3-match winning run. They look incredibly strong with the captain Marco Friedl back from his pause. Things are looking quite good. Bochum, meanwhile, have lost their last 4 games. So, this is one of those that's should tip itself. However, I think that as strong as Bremen have been, Zetter has been ill this week. I'm not sure that he's going to be available to start, so you might have Mio Backhaus in goal. In addition to that, Myron Boadu has been reinstated by Dieter For the fourth time this season, the German trainer and the Dutch striker have made up. And let's not forget that the last time they made up, and he reinstated Boadu, he scored a Lupenreiner hat trick against Leipzig. So there's a bunch of interesting things going on with Bochum here. Of course, I love to talk about Bochum tactics. With Barrow and Orditz suspended, I was going to go with Medic and Lucia, but the press conference today with Hecking, he looks like he's going to back Mats Panavig in midfield. He's an interesting player. I mean, he features in midfield and sometimes in central defense. He's been called up to the Germany U21s a couple times, but he's never been capped. So I've never had a chance to really see him in action. But I think this will be worth a goal in this one, and I'm still going to tip Bremen for the 2-1 win. But I imagine that some people might have it a little bit higher. Do you?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's an interesting looking fixture. I definitely think goals could be in order in this game, as you say, with the potential that Bochum, despite losing a lot of games, they have still looked quite solid going forward as well. They created a lot of problems for Augsburg last week before being rather unfortunate to lose that game in the end. I do believe they're a better team with Boadu in it, to be honest. He is their talisman. Hofmann has been on decent form recently, obviously getting the goal, but overall his season has been pretty rancid, really, hasn't it? Like, it's been a non-starter for him. As for Bremen, they're well and truly back on form. I mean, I've been impressed with so many of their players recently. Romano Schmid is back to his best, which is great to see after a slight form dip. As you say, Friedel has really kind of solidified that defence as well, despite Zetterer not really hitting his top form this back end of the season. So you've got to look at the home side really as big favourites. And I think they will win the game. I do like the kind of head-to-head records. And as you say, I remember the last game of last season. It was actually Bochum needed a point to avoid the playoff, and they got thrashed 4-1 at the Weserstadion. So the omens don't look good. They're in a similar position this time as well, where they basically need points badly. And I don't see them bringing anything back from the Weserstadion, to be honest with you. I've gone for a 3-1 Bremen win in this one. So moving on to the Baden-Württemberg derby, even though, to be honest, it might be a derby, but it's far from being a rivalry, this one. And there are probably 200 kilometers separating these two teams. But technically it is, we could still classify it as a Baden-Württemberg derby, that massive state in the southwest of Germany. But yeah, obviously this is two teams again in different veins of form. I felt as though Freiburg were brilliant last week. I really did. I thought that system worked superbly. I really did. I thought that was one of their best performances of the season, and it worked brilliantly. I feel as though the return of Günther, despite getting the own goal, he played solidly. And I feel as though, that system with Höhler playing behind Adamu actually worked pretty well in this case as well. So it'll be interesting to see whether they go with that again. As for Hoffenheim, obviously, Ilse remains in trouble. Basically, it seems like he's been in trouble since his second game in charge, really, doesn't it? Like, it seems as though he's barely really ever settled in Sinsheim, the Austrian man. And to be honest, despite what looked like a good win on paper against Mainz, they didn't get too much praise. And just to prove how rotten the culture is at that club, obviously Kramaric came out and criticised the 2-0 win over the team that were in third place. So, I mean, I think that says everything you want to know about Hoffenheim at the minute. The club is rotten to the core, and it's hard to see them getting much in this game. One thing I will say about Hoffenheim, I mean, they do come good sometimes. Like, just on a random occasion, they will come really good. I do like Gift Orban, even though he's been off form a little bit of late. I do think he's a danger man for them. But obviously, Bischoff always has the odd performance in him. But for me, it's going to be another push towards Europe for the SCF this game. I'm going to go for a 2-0 home win. What are you going for, Peter?
Well, you're right about it not really being a Bavü derby, but a lot of Germans consider this sort of a good versus evil match, and it has delivered in the past. I will never forget the 7-goal affair that we had in, I think that was April 2022. There was also a great 3-2 win for Freiburg beginning of last calendar year, January 2024. We love Freiburg on here. You want to sing with me a little bit, Mark? The Breisgauer Bier.
Freiburg vor, immer wieder vor, immer wieder vor. SC Freiburg vor. Yeah.
Yeah. Glad that you mentioned the phrase rotten to the core when describing Hoffenheim, because that is true in so many different respects. I think Ilzer's dismissal after the season is a mere formality. As we were talking about on the Monday pod, Kramaric's interview essentially said that he had lost confidence in his coach, and most of the locker room has lost confidence in him. I don't know if he ever had confidence to begin with. I think that dildo motivational speech really just that did it for most of the guys. But if Andrej Kramaric doesn't want you coaching him, then you're out of luck, because he is Mr. Hoffenheim at the moment, rivaled only by Sebastian Rudi and Oliver Baumann, the keeper, of course. So, it is kind of a tough one to tip, because after all, Adamu is suspended. And you may recall that during our visit to Breisgau, when I was speaking with the guy who was going there, I told him Adamu was suspended. He said, "Gott sei Dank." Thank goodness. So Julian Schuster has a couple of interesting actually has many interesting personnel decisions to make. Will he slot Matthias Ginter back in over Rosenfelder in central defense? Will Sedilia start at right back? Günther had something of a wobble. And of course, what will he do with the striker position? Höhle can play as a 9 or he can play as a 10. Will he give Grigoric the start? A lot of, Kramaric, he scored the brace last week before giving that wretched post-match interview. And I looked this up. He's actually, no other Bundesliga player has scored more goals in the second half of the season than Kramaric. And he was instrumental in that 2022-23 relegation escape. So this one, there's a lot of signs pointing towards Hoffenheim, but I'm going to go with my heart here, and I'm going to agree with you, Mark, based on how Freiburg looked last week against Gladbach, which was, after all, a European rival. And I'm going to echo your tip, 2-0 to the Schwarzwaldverein.
Yeah. Come on, Schwarzwalder. Yeah. Anyway, let's move on to another game, which pretty much every game has some kind of repercussion. This is definitely a game where a lot more riding on it for the home team, Mainz. But unfortunately, Peter, they have kind of petered out, pardon the pun, a little bit in recent weeks. So I'm going to let you lead out on your Pfälzer brothers, but not so loved Pfälzer brothers, really.
No. In unser Land sind wir die Nummer 1. That's so the chant at the Betzenberg goes. Look forward to introducing Paul to that quite soon. But in any event, actually, I looked. I thought when I looked at this game, I thought about the reverse fixture there in the Hinrunde, and you remember that crazy game?
Yeah, the 4-3. Yeah.
They took the lead 3 times. Wolfsburg equalized 3 times, and then Jonas Wind scored the winner. And there's an interesting little factoid about Wind. I watched the Hasenhüttl presser today, and it looks like Wind is going to start. I think Skov Olsen is also going to start, and Joachim Mali. So he's going to have these 3 Danes. And Skov Olsen and Killian Fischer also finally opened their VfL accounts last week. So Wind has scored 8 braces in the Bundesliga. 3 of them have come against Mainz. Isn't that interesting?
Wow.
Yeah. Well, but at any rate, talking about coaches who have lost the locker room, Hasenhüttl has also lost the locker room. He is another coach who I think dismissal after the season is a foregone conclusion. The reason for this predominantly has to do with the fact that it was Marcel Schäfer who appointed Hasenhüttl shortly before he went to Leipzig. And since then, the Germany's Green Company team, they've brought in Peter Christiansen, this Danish, huge, fat, bald Danish. He looks like some sort of villain from a comic book. He's a hard man, and I think he wants to bring in a Danish trainer for next year. As a matter of fact, he might even bring in Bo Svensson. So Hasenhüttl is on his last legs. That doesn't mean that Mainz don't have problems. Wolfsburg have lost their last 4 games, but Mainz have been really looking pretty limp in the last few weeks. And last week, we talked about it. They lost against Hoffenheim. Of course, they didn't have Jonathan Burkhardt or Nadia Mamiri. But I watched the Henriksen presser today, and I don't think they're going to get Burkhardt back. He's still recovering fitness from that illness. Amiri, of course, returns after the suspension. But Muene, the left wing back, is former Kaiserslautern player, is banged up. So I think he's kind of running out of options a little bit here. Paul Nabel is also suspended. So the way I try to put it together, I got Verachnig, this Austrian, playing on the left buttress or the left wing back role. And then you move Jae-Sung Lee up, and I think Norden's going to have to start in Nabel's place, and you don't have Burkhardt. So this is getting a little bit dicey. I think Wolfsburg have some better actors coming back, and some more experienced stuff going on, on an axial level. And so that's why I'm actually going to tip a 2-2 draw here. I think it'll be an entertaining fixture. But we're looking at a 2-2 draw is what I think.
Yeah, it is a difficult one to tip, this one, isn't it, Peter? Like I was, it's two off-form teams ultimately, really. And I think a lot of it does depend on potentially the return of Amiri, but I still feel as though Wolfsburg have got a performance in them at the end of the day. They did finish the game really well against Leipzig, and they could easily have got a point at the back end there. And they badly needed Skov Olsen to get back on form because he's been a massive transfer bust really so far before that goal last week. He didn't come in cheap either, as far as I know. So he was yet another kind of big money bust from them. But maybe he can kind of do something and get back in the starting lineup this weekend. I feel as though the head-to-head here is pointing me towards Wolfsburg. Wolfsburg have a really good record against Mainz on average. As you say, they beat them earlier in the season. And that was a period when Mainz were beating everyone as well at that period. They just turned over Bayern. They turned over a lot of big teams, Dortmund around that period, Frankfurt. And somehow Wolfsburg managed to turn them over. So I've actually gone for a shock win here for the away boys, actually. I just feel as though Mainz are just, the pressure has told a little bit. And without Burkhardt, Viper just doesn't do it for me at all. He's not got the bite of a viper, has he, unfortunately. But yet, anyway. So I've actually gone for a shock win here. I've gone for a 3-1 Wolfsburg win. I don't quite know why, but it's just a feeling on this one, really. I'm going for the away side to win. So yeah, moving on. Union Stuttgart, another interesting fixture with, probably not that much lying on it. I mean, both teams in this top spiel will be thinking that this is last chance saloon. If they don't win, Europe is gone, basically. If Stuttgart win every game, they probably would get Europe at the end of the day. But they would have to win every game, I think, at the end of the day, including this trip to East Berlin, which is not going to be easy because they're coming up against a side who are really, really hitting form at the minute and are one of the form teams in the league. That impressive 0-0 draw, if you could say a 0-0 draw is impressive, really, at Leverkusen last week. That defence is back, isn't it? Querfeld is the latest one who's really looking good in the back four, the back three. And then obviously Leite as well has really impressed in recent weeks. Reneuve is back on form as well after a poor season in the early part. And even up front, Hollerbach is becoming like a regular kind of Bundesliga danger man now, really, which is something we could never really say in the past. It's still a turgid team. They're never going to be the kind of team you're going to watch and see great football, Union Berlin, but they're definitely a team that has stopped losing games, which they were doing too much towards the middle part of the season this year. As for Stuttgart, you just don't know what you're getting from them, do you? They've still got a lot of injuries on the back line and things. I believe Finn Jeltsch will be back for this game, like a young man that obviously, for me personally, means a lot as a former Nuremberg guy and also a local to Nuremberg as well. But defensively, they've really struggled this season. They've had no kind of defensive cohesion. They've had so many random players in that back line. The likes of Hendricks, Sturgeon keeps getting starts, and you just don't know who's going to line up in that back four at times. So as a result, I think this is a game that's likely where both teams are going to cancel each other out. We're not that much to play for ultimately, with Stuttgart probably prioritising the cup in a month's time. Union will just be happy to get to 35 points, which they would do with a draw here as well. So I've gone for a 1-1 in this one. What do you think, Peter?
Well, we sync up yet again. I'm glad you used the adjective turgid to describe Union Berlin's play. We were talking about that on the Monday pod, of course, that Stefan Baumgart has gotten Union back to playing Union football, which is turgid as hell. This is some milestones here. So Union are on 34 points, so they can reach that magical 35-point number that we're always talking about on this pod. With a win and what will be officially their 200th Bundesliga game against the team that they won the relegation playoff in 18-19. That was actually the last time that a Zweite Bundesliga side won the relegation playoff, was Union Berlin over Stuttgart, taking the second leg there at the Stadion an der Alte Försterei. Last I heard, this Volta-Mada suspension is still on. They did file an appeal, but I've not heard anything from the DFB. I don't think we get something tomorrow either. So who does Hoeneß have in attack then? Undav, not much of an op. Well, he's got Demirovic, Undav needs to go. Just go to Colombia and get his head clear for a little while. That would probably. But so I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw here. I think we see a turgid affair. Maybe Mio scores, and our Hollaback girl gets the. That's a good tip.
Yeah. Benjamin's got his holler back. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But anyway, let's. I'm going to let you lead out for what is one of the most interesting games. Obviously, with a lot lying on it. The inform FC Augsburg against the, high flying Eintracht Frankfurt. So, what are you going for there, Peter?
Well, you really got me inspired when you and I were talking on the Monday pod, and we gave a little pay-in to Augsburg, to the Fugerstädter, who are, after all, your second team, and they've captured my heart as well. So there is all sorts of fun history about Augsburg this season. We already know that Alexis Claude Maurice is the first Augsburg player to score a Lupenreiner hat-trick. We also know that Finn Dahmen broke the club scoreless record this year. But I was doing some lineup projections because I thought that Frederick Jensen was transferring to St. Louis, but now apparently he's been sent back. But anyways, I was looking up this kid, this Matt Kumura kid, and he is also the first teenager to score 3 FCA goals. So that's the 19-year-old is. So that's a little bit of Augsburg history for you as well. Another piece of history, Augsburg officially clinched safety last week. Never before have they clinched safety that early in the season. Seasons in the German top flight. So here we are. We've become something of a Fugerstädter pod. We love the Bavarians here. And of course, this match is impossible to tip because we've got Frankfurt against Tottenham in the Europa League tonight, and I don't know what's going to happen. Other than I got the lineups in here. It looks like Topmüller. I mean, they beat up on Heidenheim last week, and then immediately went into energy conservation mode. So obviously, the Europa League is more important to them than this Augsburg encounter, and it's the early kickoff on Sunday for some reason. So this is a very, very difficult match to predict. But I'm going to go ahead with a 0-0 draw. So advertising Augsburg. Actually, you know what? No. I've never done this on the pod before, but I'm going to change my mind. The reason I'm going to change my mind, I'm going to go for a 1-0 Eintracht victory. Based on the fact that another little interesting thing that I was looking up about Eintracht, because I noticed that they scored 2 goals on counters last week. So I was thinking about the Buffelhörder. Remember the Buffelhörder? We've talked about them on this pod a lot. That was the old attacking access of Ante Rebic, Sebastian Haller, and Luka Jovic back when he used to play football. And they scored 12 goals on the counter that year. And so I looked up how many goals have Eintracht scored on the counter this year? 11. Wow. So they're going to break that record. And this is all losing Omar Marmouche in the winter transfer window is amazing. So, they're going to score 1 goal on a counter, and it's a 1-0 Eintracht victory. That's my tip.
Yeah, it's definitely a hard one to tip, and as you say, it's a very short turnaround for them. I mean, as you say, it's a 3:30 kickoff. So normally they give the teams that have played in Europe the late kickoff when they have these kind of Sunday triple headers. But no, St. Pauli have the honours for that. So yeah, for me, Augsburg are going to be as hard as ever to play against. They're going to fire into this Eintracht team, and we don't quite know who's going to start for Eintracht in this one. Will they go with a full team? I mean, obviously they're going to prioritize this game tonight, ultimately, against Tottenham. I mean, it's a massive chance for them to advance into a semi-final, where they probably be favourite against the winner of Lazio and Bodo Glimt as well. So, I mean, we could potentially be looking at more history for Frankfurt as their amazing Europa League record continues, really, doesn't it, this season? But yeah, Augsburg is not going to be an easy opponent, and they're just such a tough tackling, hard team to break down at the moment. Everyone in that team is fighting for the same cause, and they tend to have a goal in them as well. Like, they do have a few 0-0 draws, let's be honest, but normally they're good for a goal. Will they have enough to beat Eintracht? I'm not sure. Although the reverse leg was a 2-2 draw, and I think Augsburg were winning until the last 10 minutes as well. So that was kind of the start of their good form in some ways when they went to the Commerzbank Arena. But for me, this is going to be a 1-1 draw. I do believe that Augsburg will make it only 1 defeat in 14 games. I think they will get over the line with that one, but I don't think they'll quite have enough to beat this strong Eintracht team. But a lot of that could depend on the result tonight. I mean, if Tottenham win, then Eintracht have to go for it on Sunday. But I feel as though if Frankfurt win, then there'll probably be a few beers tonight, let's be honest, and things, and they might not be too prepared for this game as such. So I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw, but it's one of the harder ones to tip this weekend because of tonight's late kickoff, I think. So yeah, let's move on to the Nordrhein-Westfalen derby, probably the big game of the weekend, really, isn't it, in terms of the tradition clubs and things going head to head. It's Borussia Dortmund versus Gladbach, two legendary German football clubs, both tucked within 50 kilometers of each other in Nordrhein-Westfalen. So, always a great occasion when these two sides meet. And normally it's a good game as well. We've seen a lot of classics between these two teams recently. And I remember a 4-2 win for Dortmund, I think last season when Gladbach were 2 up, I seem to remember. And yeah, the Gladbach do have a decent record against Dortmund, but not really in Dortmund. Normally this is a fixture that tends to go with the home team very often. As for Dortmund, I mean, they were unbelievably good against Barca. I felt as though, wow, what a performance that was. They just annihilated the, Hansi Flick's Barca there. And they could easily have got a 4-0 win and taken it to extra time, as far as I'm concerned. I thought they were massive in that game. And Kovac is really getting something going there, actually. He really is doing well. Guirassy, got the best out of Guirassy. Obviously, Julian Brandt, the same can't be said for him, unfortunately. But it's definitely, things are looking up, for them. They seem to have options, Gittins getting back in the side a little bit. So for me, I'm looking at the home team here. I feel as though Gladbach missed a trick the last couple of weeks. They needed to really take 4 or 6 points from the last 2 if they wanted to get European football, because they got some hard games coming up the next 2 or 3 matches. For me, they're not going to get anything against this resurgent and vastly improved Dortmund side, who, credit to Kovac, we bashed him on the show before, but he really has done a kind of good job as far as I'm concerned so far at BVB. They are going to get a 3-1 home win here. Peter, what are you saying?
Well, as we were talking about on the Monday pod, Gladbach were very, very poor against Freiburg. They deserve to lose that match, and am I back?
Yeah, you're back there. Yeah.
Well, Tim, as I was saying, Tim Kleindienst rightly criticized his team for their body language. They were not playing as if Europe was on the line. Unfortunately, Gladbach still have injury issues. I think Reitz is still questionable with the muscular problems, and Honor Rott may be out. Alassane Play has to play a better game than he did at 10 last week. I don't think he could do much worse. But as you mentioned, credit to Dortmund. They were, I mean, that was a really an amazing performance. And, Emre Can and Julian Ryerson were both deliberately rested for that second leg. And the back three of Niklas Süle, Waldemar Anton, and Rami Bensebaini, despite the fact that he scored a hard luck own goal, played incredibly well. Mm-hmm. And those are three guys who have just had not just an awful season. Well, in the case of Anton, it's only been one season, but in the case of Bensebaini and Süle, horrible Dortmund careers. I think there's a lot of great things to take from that performance, including the fact that they slid Maxi Bayer back to that buttressing support attack role and rolled out a 3-4-3, and it was a really good set of tactics. So I think that Dortmund are going to win this one. I was actually leaning towards a 3-2 victory because I thought that Gladbach would have some reaction in them, and perhaps they will. Kleindienst, Bayer, and Guirassy are actually the three leading goal scorers of headers in this. So maybe we see a few monster headers in this. I think a 3-1 is a good tip, though.
Yeah, and then go on, Peter. I'm going to let you do the honours and lead out for an interesting-looking final match of the weekend between Pauli and Leverkusen.
Yeah, well, there really is a crisis of creativity with Xabi Alonso's defending champions, and the fact that Florian Wirtz is back in action and made a little bit of an appearance off the bench in that 0-0 draw against Union last week was encouraging. I mean, he was able briefly to bring a little bit of magic back. I don't know what's going on with Granit Xhaka at the moment. He's just not himself. He doesn't have that midfield dominance, doesn't seem to have that motivation. And we talked about Xabi's body language. I mean, it looks like he's headed to Real Madrid after the season, after all, now that there's nothing left to win here. St. Pauli, the great news is that they are going to probably stay in the league, I think. And this will be the first time in the last at least 40 years that they did not immediately get relegated after the getting promoted. And Alexander Blessin has done a great job with this team. It's evidenced by the fact that his set piece variants, even if they haven't always worked, they've always been good. He works that team hard on the training pitch, and not just dead ball situations, but also throw-ins. 5 goals from throw-ins this season. So I am going to go for, I don't know if it's a shock result here, but the deflated Leverkusen balloon at the Müller-Tor, and what would be a big match and what would effectively help St. Pauli clinch safety. It wouldn't be arithmetically confirmed, but if they can get up to 32 points and Heidenheim don't win against Bayern, then, I mean, we're looking at 10 points with... Yeah, so I mean that would effectively be safety for them if they can get a win here. So I don't think they do, actually. I think they get a 1-1 draw.
You talked us into it, Peter. Yeah, you talked us into it. Yeah. But I'm actually going to go a step further, Peter. I'm going to go a step further and go for a Pauli win here. I just feel as though the wheels are well and truly fallen off this Xabi Alonso juggernaut, really, for me. I just think the performances the last 2 months have been nothing short of woeful, really, at times. As you say, there's no creativity in the team. The players are falling out all the time. I think Xabi's literally out of ideas with this squad, which is crazy, really. I think Schick kept them going for long periods, but, I mean, it's just even his form has fallen off a cliff edge now as well. And as you say, the midfield is just none of that midfield. Palacios, Xhaka, or Andrich are just on form at the minute, are they? And do they go with Buendia? Come on, surely not. But it really is kind of last chance saloon. And I feel as though if Bayern win this, they'll know that the writing's on the wall. If Bayern win, basically the title's over, effectively, I think. They're not going to blow 7 points from that lead with the goal difference, obviously. So basically, I think unless Bayern do drop points with a draw or a loss, there's just going to be not very much motivation in this Leverkusen side for me. And I think we saw the defeat against Bielefeld in the kind of humiliating fashion that they managed to lose that somehow to a Dritte-Liga side from 1-0 ahead. And then some of the recent performances, they were awful against Heidenheim and were extremely lucky to win that game. Then they were also awful last week, barely created a bean against Union Berlin. And I feel as though we are unfortunately seeing the end of an era, the fall of an empire, effectively here, even though it only lasted like 18 months, really. But still, it was good while it lasted, And I think a defeat here, a 2-1 defeat under the lights at the Millantor, is going to be the final straw for Jabby and his empire, I think. So, yeah, we're going to see a 2-1 win. But I'm going to put your result down, Peter, because I'm a Jabby.
No. You know what? I'll go with you. I'll switch with you. I'm going to
go on. Let's do it because the rhetoric sounded good, right?
Yeah. But I want to know, who do you think scores?
Yeah. Good point, but I think they will get a couple. Well, Bielefeld scored a couple. I'm going to go Afolayan and Sad. No, Troy. I'm going to go Troy. He's always dangerous as well.
All right.
Who are you going for? Who's your tip?
No, I hope you would lead the way there.
Troy always looks Afolayan because he's a former Bolton man, and my dad's a Bolton fan, so I always go for him. Yeah, but obviously they do struggle to score goals. But at the end of the day, Bielefeld can get 2 goals past them. Then anyone can, really. With all due respect to Bielefeld, but they are a Dritte-Liga side at the end of the day. So yeah, for me, this will be the end of an empire. It will effectively hand the title to Bayern Munich, and we all live happily ever after, I guess, after that. Yeah, let's have a look at the table then, if the results go ahead. So if our predictions do go ahead, there will be a 9-point gap with a superior goal difference, which effectively makes it 10 points. So that will be title done and dusted if the results go ahead. Frankfurt will continue. If Peter's tip is correct, they'll really close in on top 4, won't they, really, with a 6-point gap and a better goal difference. They'll be looking very, very hot for that top 4 position and Champions League football. Dortmund also closing in on European positions again. You will need a top 6 finish this year, unless Stuttgart can somehow finish in the top 6, which is very unlikely. So they'll still have work to do, but they'll be looking likely to get European football again next season, should they beat rivals Borussia Monchengladbach. Moving down towards the bottom, I feel as though I've said this a million times, literally. It's been that bottom 3 the entire season this year. It really has. Since about match week 4 or 5, it's just been that bottom 3 the whole year. And it's rarely changed, really, apart from that Heidenheim couple of wins at the beginning of the season. It's been writing on the wall for these 3 all along. And yeah, Pauli would go as good as safe, really, with 10 points clear with 4 games to go. And Hoffenheim, reluctantly for Peter, would be as good as safe, really, 8 points clear with just 4 games to go, despite potential defeat. So yeah, thanks for joining us, guys. We got decent numbers there on the watches, but please remember, guys, always check in and let us know your predictions as well. Thanks to Paul for sending in his predictions too, and thanks again to Peter for the entertainment and fantastic predictions as well. So get your money on it, and we'll see you again the other side of the weekend on Monday for the review show. So happy Easter, guys, and see you then. Ciao, ciao, guys.